One of the worst mistakes a man can make is to overlook the first signs of someone treating him poorly. These signs often begin subtly, like a hurtful comment disguised as a joke, turning away when you talk, interrupting you, or just not caring about your time and effort. While many people tell men to be forgiving, keep things peaceful, or always give others the benefit of the doubt, there's a serious price to pay for constantly ignoring these actions. Respect is not something that suddenly disappears in a relationship. It slowly wears away, and it begins with the things you choose to forgive early on. A man who is sure of himself learns to notice things without getting emotional. He doesn't immediately fight back or get angry about every small offense. But he also doesn't let disrespect go unnoticed. He sees it for what it is, an early sign of how a woman truly views him, and perhaps more importantly, how she expects him to see himself. If you are always finding excuses for her behavior, or telling yourself it's not important, you are not being patient. You are ignoring your inner feelings. The way a woman treats you when she thinks you aren't paying attention is exactly how she feels about you. Don't let charm, looks, or your feelings for her blind you to this clear reality. Most men are taught to think that if they are just a little more patient, more understanding, or more forgiving, things will naturally get better. But relationships, like any human interaction, follow patterns. If you let disrespect happen at the start, you set the rule. You are teaching her how to behave toward you. If you are the kind of man who swallows every mean comment and ignores every thoughtless action, you are helping cause your own mistreatment. The message becomes clear. He doesn't value himself enough to ask for better treatment. And once she truly believes that, getting her respect back becomes extremely difficult. Now, this doesn't mean you have to react with anger or fight over every small thing. In fact, strong men do the opposite. They deal with disrespect with quiet, confident certainty. They let their presence or lack of it speak for them. When a woman disrespects you, especially early on, the smartest move is to quietly step back. This is not a trick or a game. It is a natural reaction to a change in her behavior. You are simply choosing not to give your time to someone who doesn't show you the respect you deserve. This silent act of self-respect creates a boundary without needing a big, dramatic discussion. By recognizing disrespect early, you protect your self-worth before it gets damaged. You send a strong message, not just to her but to yourself, that your inner peace, your energy, and your time are not things to be bargained with. A man who respects himself isn't desperate to keep someone who treats him badly. He doesn't beg for apologies or plead to be understood. He simply stops being present where he isn't valued. This kind of clear thinking doesn't come from being arrogant or cold. It comes from experience and self-control. It is easy to react emotionally when you feel hurt or rejected, but holding back is a higher form of power. Seeing red flags doesn't mean jumping to bad conclusions or thinking the worst of everyone. It means being aware enough to understand repeated actions and having enough confidence to walk away when they clash with your personal standards. The truth is, the more you ignore small signs of disrespect, the larger those signs will get over time. What starts as rolling her eyes turns into yelling. What begins as indirectly mean comments turns into full-blown hatred. The longer you put up with disrespect, the more normal it becomes. And by the time you finally decide to speak up, the harm is often already done. That is why seeing these red flags early is so important. Not just to protect your feelings, but to protect your image as a man who knows his value. The most powerful men in the world, whether in business, leadership, or relationships, share one thing. They do not tolerate disrespect. They don't give second chances to people who try to bring them down. They don't seek approval from people who constantly test their limits. And they certainly don't allow themselves to be slowly ruined by someone who doesn't value them. So if you want to build a foundation of real confidence, it starts here. Pay attention to how people treat you when they have no reason to try to impress you. Watch how a woman acts when you set a small limit. Listen to your gut feeling when something feels wrong, and most importantly, Respect yourself enough to walk away right at the start instead of waiting until the damage cannot be undone. Because the man who can spot disrespect early and act on it is the man who never has to beg for respect later. A man who always explains himself is unknowingly giving away his power bit by bit. It might feel like you're being honest, open, or communicative, but the truth is that when you are constantly trying to justify your actions, defend what you said, or convince someone, especially a woman who treats you poorly, that your intentions are good, you are showing that you care more about her approval than you do about your own standards. And she feels that subtle shift in your energy, even if you don't realize you are doing it, it immediately changes how she sees you. There is a huge difference between explaining things clearly and begging for approval. Confident men don't argue to prove their worth. They don't turn every difference of opinion into a fight just to prove they were correct. They speak once, clearly, directly, and let the strength of their belief stand on its own. They understand that anyone who truly respects them doesn't need pages of explanation just to accept a limit or a choice. Respect doesn't need a defense. It needs presence. The reason many men fall into the habit of explaining too much is due to fear. Fear of being misunderstood, fear of a fight, fear of losing someone's love. But here is the difficult truth. If a woman disrespects you, no amount of explaining will fix that. In fact, the more you try to defend yourself, the more power you give her to question you. It becomes a cycle where you are always reacting, always trying to get back into her good graces, always trying to prove something. And the longer you stay in that loop, the more tired and angry you become. What confident men do differently is simple. They state their limits and decisions with calm certainty, then move forward without waiting for praise. They don't give long speeches about why they feel the way they do. They know that someone who values them doesn't need to be convinced. If she is mature, she will respect your clarity. If she is not, she will test your patience with endless challenges to your authority and self-worth, and that is your sign to rethink her place in your life. Not to explain yourself more. This is not about becoming cold or distant. It is about becoming emotionally independent. A man who knows his life path doesn't have time to manage someone else's reactions. He doesn't perform emotional tricks to make someone feel okay about the standards he holds. He moves with an inner peace that says, I know what I believe, I know what I expect, and I'm not going to water either down just to avoid tension. When you stop explaining yourself all the time, something powerful happens. You become slightly unpredictable in a good way. You are no longer constantly trying to fix how others see you. You are simply living by your rules, and that alone earns a level of respect most people are not used to seeing. Women especially feel this change when a man doesn't seek their approval in every interaction. They are drawn to him because he seems steady, calm, untouched by drama. And let's be honest, some women test men, not out of badness, but to see how strong your character is. If every time she questions you, you fall into long defenses and emotional explanations, she learns she can control the conversation. But when you answer calmly and don't rush into defense mode, she is forced to think about her own behavior. She sees that she can control the situation, and whether she admits it or not, she respects that. Because deep down, women want a man who stands his ground, not a man who begs for acceptance. That is why the moment you stop over-explaining is the moment you start building real strength. You save your energy. You speak with more power, and you gain more respect without ever needing to demand it. People pay more attention to those who don't feel the need to talk all the time. Silence, when used correctly, is a tool of power. So the next time you feel the need to explain yourself, stop. Ask yourself, am I clarifying something important, or am I trying to be liked? If it is the latter, take a breath and let it go. Trust that your value doesn't need to be defended, it needs to be lived, because when you stop needing to be understood all the time, you finally begin to understand who you really are. When a man begins to truly respect himself, one of the first things he naturally does is create clear personal limits. And what separates confident men from those who constantly find themselves stuck in bad situations is not just that they set limits, but that they keep them without feeling bad, scared, or apologetic. A personal limit is not a punishment. It is a standard, it is a line that says, "This is how I expect to be treated. Cross it, and you won't have the same access to me." So many men struggle with the idea of setting limits, especially in romantic relationships. They are afraid of being called controlling, too harsh, or emotionally cold. But here is what most don't realize. When you fail to set limits, you are not being kind. You are helping cause your own disrespect. If a woman talks down to you, ignores your opinions, uses her feelings to control you, or consistently doesn't care about your time and you say nothing, you are training her that you will accept that behavior, and whether she knows it or not, she will lose respect for you over time. The most self-assured men in the world don't get loud or aggressive to make a point. They don't threaten or beg. They calmly draw a line and then follow through if it is crossed. It is not about making her feel bad. It is about making sure you remain true to yourself. Because if you don't have limits, you don't really have a strong identity. You become whoever she needs you to be in the moment. And by doing that, you lose the core of what made you attractive and worthy of respect to begin with. A limit might be as simple as letting her know you won't continue a conversation if it turns disrespectful. It might be choosing to end things with a woman who constantly belittles your goals or makes fun of your values. It might be telling her that you won't put up with emotional control, tears, threats, or indirect aggression to get her way. Whatever it is, the key is not just saying it, but living it, because limits are only as strong as your willingness to enforce them. Now, setting limits doesn't mean you have to be cold or emotionally closed off. In fact, it is the opposite. It is about being emotionally aware and mature enough to know what you need, what you will allow, and what you won't. A confident man doesn't fear the discomfort that limits sometimes bring. He accepts it, knowing that the short-term stress it might cause is worth the long-term peace and respect it creates. A woman may initially fight back when you set limits, especially if she is used to getting her way or dealing with men who change their minds based on her feelings. But if she is mature, she will adjust. And if she is not, she will push harder. That is where your real strength is tested. Do you stick to your standard, or do you fall back into old ways just to avoid a fight or keep her close? Because the truth is, how you handle that moment decides whether she respects you or walks all over you. And be clear, the moment you create and uphold clear limits, her behavior changes. She begins to see you as a man with self-respect, self-control, and purpose. She may challenge it, she may question it, but underneath that challenge is something deeper, curiosity, maybe even admiration. She realizes you're not just another man she can control with love or drama. You are steady, you are firm, and you won't let her chaos become your normal life. This change isn't just about your relationships with women. It changes how you move through every part of your life. You stop saying yes when you mean no. You stop allowing one-sided friendships. You stop being there for people who are never there for you. That inner change shines outward. People notice it. They might not say it, but they feel it, and in return, they treat you differently. A limit is your silent way of telling the world, I take myself seriously. You should too. It is not about being cruel. It is about being clear. It is about choosing self-respect over short-term approval. And when you do that consistently, you no longer chase respect. It starts finding you. One of the most overlooked but powerful ways to handle a woman who doesn't respect you is to control how you react emotionally. Most men lose their influence, their power, and eventually their self-respect, not because they said too little, but because they reacted too much. Emotional control isn't about hiding your feelings, it's about using them with intention. The moment you let someone pull you into a storm of emotional reaction, especially someone who is treating you poorly, you have already given up control of the situation. When a woman disrespects you, whether it is through mean jokes, indirect attacks, or open anger, it can feel like a punch to the gut. Your natural feeling is to defend yourself, to fight back, or to try and fix the situation immediately. But in doing that, you immediately approve of her behavior by reacting to it. You show her that her words and actions can unbalance you. And no matter how right you feel in the moment, what she sees is a man who lacks emotional discipline. The confident man, the man who demands respect without ever needing to raise his voice, is the one who doesn't flinch when tested. He doesn't get pulled into petty fights. He doesn't try to win every verbal exchange. He is not trying to be right. He is trying to be respected. And oddly, he gains that respect by not playing the emotional game at all. He chooses silence over shouting, presence over triviality, and calm over chaos. This kind of self-control takes time to learn. It requires self-awareness. You have to notice the moment when your heart beats faster, when you clench your jaw, when you feel the need to prove a point or fire back a clever insult, and then you stop, you breathe, you remind yourself that real power is not in reacting. It is in choosing how to respond or whether to respond at all. Emotional control also saves your energy. When you stop feeding drama with your attention, it dies. A woman who enjoys emotional conflict will push harder at first, trying to provoke you, trying to get the reaction she is used to getting. But when you stay still, unshaken, unbothered, she is forced to sit with her own chaos. And that is often the moment the game starts to change. She realizes she can't control you with her moods. She can't throw you off course. And whether she admits it or not, that quiet strength hits harder than any words ever could, because most people aren't used to being met with calm when they throw fire. They are used to gasoline. So when you respond with stillness, it disarms them. It forces them to change their approach. Now, let's be clear. Emotional control doesn't mean allowing disrespect. It means you don't react immediately. It means that if someone consistently treats you poorly, you address it directly without emotional escalation. You say, I don't allow people to speak to me like that. And then you walk away. If it continues, you show that you don't need to yell or argue to mean what you say. Your actions are your voice. This kind of emotional discipline also gives you a huge advantage in every area of life. At work, in friendships, in public. You become the man people turn to when things go wrong because they know you don't panic. You don't react, you respond. And that quality, especially in a world full of emotionally reactive people, is rare, and it is respected. In romantic relationships, it becomes a quiet test. Women will naturally test limits, not out of malice, but out of instinct. They want to know, can this man handle pressure? Can he stay steady when I am emotional? And if you can't, if you react to every wave she throws at you, she will feel it, even if she doesn't say it, and the respect will slowly start to disappear. But when you remain calm, not because you are uncaring, but because you have controlled your emotions, she sees that she can trust your presence. She sees that you are not easily shaken, and that, more than charm, success, or good looks, creates lasting attraction and deep respect. One of the most empowering things a man can do when dealing with a woman who doesn't respect is to stop giving her his attention. It sounds easy, almost passive, but in reality, it is one of the clearest demonstrations of self-worth. Attention is power. And just like money, if you give it away easily, especially to someone who treats you badly, it loses its value. When a woman starts to disrespect you, ignore your limits, or show disregard for your presence, your instinct might be to fix things. You may try harder, text more, explain your value, or try to prove yourself to her. But all that effort only communicates one thing: that you are desperate for her approval, that her attention or acceptance is more valuable than your self-respect. And once she senses that, the situation is lost. The power dynamic shifts completely, and not in your favor. Stepping back your attention isn't about playing games. It is about fixing the power balance by showing that you do not chase those who treat you badly, that you do not beg for time, affection, or recognition. When a man starts giving his time and energy to someone who undermines him, he is slowly digging a hole he won't easily climb out of. But when he takes a step back, not with anger, not with revenge in mind, but with dignity, something powerful happens. He reminds her, and more importantly himself, of his value. Women respect men who value their time and energy. When you pull back, you give her space to realize what she has been taking for granted. You stop being a constant presence she can treat however she pleases and start becoming a man she actually has to think about. Often women test limits not knowingly but instinctively. They push to see what they can get away with. And every time you react by giving too much, you strengthen the idea that you will put up with bad treatment just to keep her close. But when you remove your attention, when you stop being immediately available, when you stop responding to every challenge, when you stop showing up for someone who doesn't value you, it breaks that pattern. She begins to feel the shift, the absence, and that silence often speaks louder than any argument or fight ever could. It is not about being cold or emotionally distant. You don't need to be bitter or want revenge. You just need to be focused elsewhere, on yourself, your growth, your peace. Start putting that same energy you once poured into chasing her into your fitness, your work, your mindset. Let her see you getting better without her being the center of your world. There is a quiet strength in a man who walks away from disrespect with grace. A man who doesn't need to slam the door or make a scene. He just pulls back, no explanation needed. That kind of detachment doesn't come from insecurity. It comes from a deep understanding of one's worth. Because the truth is, when someone repeatedly disrespects you, they are betting on your fear of losing them, counting on your need for closeness to override your need for respect. But when you change that, when you make it clear that no connection is worth your dignity, they either change or they leave, and either outcome is a win for you. If she respects your pullback and begins to treat you better, you have shifted the power balance in your favor. If she continues with the same behavior or leaves your life entirely, she has made room for someone who will value you as you deserve. Too many men waste years in relationships where they are not seen, not appreciated, and not respected, all because they don't believe they have the strength to walk away. But here is the truth. You don't need to chase what pulls you down. The more you pull back your attention from what drains you, the more power you gain. You become less reactive, more careful, and finally more attractive, not just to others, but to yourself. Your attention is precious. Don't hand it out like spare change. Let it be earned. Let it be a prize for behavior that matches your standards. And when you do that, you not only change how others treat you, you change how you see yourself. Sometimes the strongest statement you can make is to simply leave completely, not with drama, not with demands, just with a calm and quiet decision that says, I no longer accept this. Walking away from a woman who consistently disrespects you isn't weakness. It is the highest form of self-respect. It is the moment you finally draw the line, not to punish her, but to protect your own identity, your peace, and your dignity. Because the truth is, some people will never respect you until you show them that their behavior has consequences. If you stay in a relationship or situation where you are constantly being made to feel small, questioned, insulted, or controlled, you begin to break down from the inside out. Every time you let it go, you take away a piece of your own self-worth. You teach yourself that this is acceptable, that love feels like pain, that respect is optional. And over time, you lose touch with the person you once were, the one who had standards, pride, and self-worth. But walking away changes the story. It is not just a message to her. It is a declaration to yourself. It says, I choose me. It says, I am no longer willing to shrink so someone else can feel powerful. And that is what walking away truly does. It brings back your personal power. It doesn't mean you didn't care. It doesn't mean you weren't willing to try to fix things. It just means you finally realize that no amount of effort can fix what someone isn't willing to change. There is a tendency, especially among kind-hearted men, to try and fix everything, to prove their worth, to wait for the other person to see their value. But some women only respond to limits, not words. They will test how far they can push, how much they can disrespect you, and still have you stay. Every time you stay after being treated poorly, you teach her that her behavior has no cost. But the moment you leave, everything changes. Now she is left with silence, with absence, with the realization that the man who once tolerated Everything has finally reached his limit. And that is not revenge, it is reality. You didn't leave to make her sad. You left because you refused to be sad. You refused to keep fighting for someone who wouldn't even meet you halfway. When you walk away with dignity, you don't need to explain yourself. Your absence is the message, and you do it not for her to regret it, but for you to remember what it means to stand tall again, because staying too long in bad or disrespectful environments harms your ability to love yourself. It clouds your judgment. You start to think this is normal, that maybe it is your fault. Walking away is how you break that illusion. And yes, it can be difficult, especially if you have strong feelings for her, but difficult doesn't mean wrong. In fact, the right decision often feels heavy at first. What helps is knowing that every step away from disrespect is a step back toward your true self. The person who knows peace, who attracts respect, who refuses to be mistreated, he is waiting for you on the other side of that decision. And here is the truth that many men eventually learn. When you finally walk away, the world opens up. You begin to attract better relationships. You set a new standard, not just for how others treat you, but for how you treat yourself. You start to build a life where your peace is the most important thing, where your voice is heard, and where you are no longer living under someone else's emotional mood swings. You don't walk away to win a power struggle. You walk away because your time, your energy, and your heart are no longer up for discussion. You walk away because you understand that respect isn't optional. It is essential. And when you take that stand, you don't just get your strength back. You lift up your entire life.